we good? We're live backstage, but there's something missing.
A guest.
A guest. There's no guest.
There's an empty chair.
Just the empty chair. You know, in law, in the courtroom, they talk about the empty chair in the room, and you can always blame the empty chair.
Nice.
It's like a good strategy because they can't argue with you.
Right.
So today we'll just interview an empty chair and see what happens.
There's a co-host missing. Come on.
No, but in reality, this is our last episode together with you serving as the co-host as you head to greener pastures. Is that the idea? But we're just backstage on the live stream, so this gives us a good opportunity to actually do some visual things that we can't do on the audio podcast.
Yeah.
And man, it's been a good run.
It has been.
We've spent a lot of time in here, but it hasn't always looked like this.
Well, we were just looking at the pictures, and maybe we'll see it in a second. But this room, people are always asking me, what was this room before the studio?
They don't remember
people
the
are
fishbowl.
like, where's the studio?
Yeah.
And like, well, it's a big secret. It's actually not a big secret. It's in the middle of campus.
It's right in the middle of everything.
Right,
But
because it used to be
we took over the last unused or
Right.
underused
space.
space on campus. We looked at a few other options.
We didn't even ask the registrar. We just did it.
I forgot to ask the registrar. I wonder if he knows we're down here.
Well, I think he does now because Mrs. Brock schedules it.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, so some pictures here. So this was what it looked like before we did any of the, we'll call them enhancements. I'm not sure facilities.
Improvements.
Improvements, yeah.
Right.
And we had some kind of DIY panels up here. Of course, the whole thing is DIY, but
Yeah.
it's
In hindsight, we should have recorded videos of how we constructed it.
yeah.
We could have
should
been
done a
viral
time
that
lapse.
way.
Yeah. We got to figure out how to get Isaiah here on the podcast. You got a microphone in front of you for the last 3 years. It's never been turned on.
Well, if I push a button, it comes on.
There he is.
That's what I'm talking
The
about.
man.
So
Well,
you constructed all this, but you also made the acoustic panel that we were using here to, I think, just do voiceovers as part of the initial.
we were doing the intros, right? So
initial
all the
thing, yeah.
voiceovers for the intros and outros, and
But it was just tables and chairs, and
Some,
it's an acoustic nightmare, isn't it?
yeah.
well, yeah, back when we started with the concrete walls and the glass windows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the worst for sound bouncing all over the place. So we did almost every square inch in this place has been treated. There's a couple of cinder block, maybe 10 feet, 6 feet, I don't know, 8 feet.
And even you guys got involved. You guys helped paint the
Yeah, we
window
painted
frames.
the
and-
window
Painted
frames.
the green,
We
frame?
replaced the ceiling tiles with the thicker
the
ones.
ceiling, acoustic ceiling tiles.
Yeah, acoustic ones.
People don't appreciate it.
No.
Yeah.
And shout out to Courtney Rankin here.
Yep.
She was the mastermind behind a lot of the scripting.
Did a lot of the writing for us
Yeah.
in the early
and
stages.
editing all the way up until season 6. So
So what else we got? We got some other fun pictures here. The studio evolution.
yeah, see
The man.
the
There's
man, the myth.
soundboard.
Are you
Yeah.
asleep in that picture? I feel like maybe he's
Yeah,
asleep.
it kind of looks like it. Back when we only had 2 microphones, too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
That was a simple setup compared to what we have now with
you
all the
probably
cameras.
wish we could go back to that. don't you?
Although I like not having to set up and tear down. That
Yeah,
really
yeah,
makes
'cause
a
it's
huge
just
we had to
difference.
do that every
It was like
episode.
45 minutes to
Best
set up
decision ever was to make this a Loctite.
a
Come
permanent
in, turn it
location.
on, sit down, turn it off when
Yeah.
we're done.
Yeah,
Best decision ever.
especially for
Who
me.
made that decision? That was a good decision.
That was someone had some foresight.
Somebody did, somebody did.
Yeah.
All right. So, yep, just doing the intros.
I think this might have been when you did that official intro that we have,
Yeah.
the canned intro. Because you're here by
Well,
yourself.
You're
that
listening
week.
to On
Oh,
Mission.
you're listening. Yeah. My kids say, "What did Isaiah do to your voice on that?" Because you sound like you don't normally sound like that.
And it was like a one-take thing, too.
Yeah.
You nailed it.
He's a lawyer.
Exactly.
one
Did you
take
practice
wonder.
that?
I can't do it any. No, I didn't practice. They
I
handed
wondered.
it to me when I walked in.
That's right. We did. He said, "Say this."
All right.
And then
So
a couple pictures.
Jonathan took all these pictures.
Yeah, behind the scenes.
The scene. Oh, there's Andy.
And Andy.
Yep.
Yeah.
He helped us a lot, especially with a lot of
Mastermind behind the
cameras.
cameras and
Yeah.
and everything.
It's amazing what those guys do when you give them a little money.
And how bright it was
We
with
should
all the
try
windows.
that more often.
And we did this over Christmas time,
Yep.
in this and
Oh yeah, look at the snow going on.
snow up in the back.
Mm-hmm. There he is. There he is, looking all young and dapper, and
Oh, well.
look at the hair. That was beautiful. Oh, this was our prototype desk. So we have a
Yeah.
custom-built desk. Rick Warren made this desk for us, based on lots of different ideas we had for a 3-desk setup or 3-guest setup.
Because the studio is not actually very big. And so we
Right.
had to optimize every square inch.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to be knocking knees the whole time. And
Right.
so we tested a few different editions of the
So we
the
actually
setup.
film it on a diagonal. So behind me is a corner of this
Right.
room, and this desk kind of faces the wall where the cameras are. So it's perfect for 3 guests, and then we
Right.
kind of can center in on 2 guests, or
on
then
one.
ultimately on
yeah.
our actual guests that we want to hear from every week.
Right.
But this desk is a very strange geometric pattern, and
Right.
Isaiah put the.
And we used the boards to figure out the camera
What were you
angles.
doing here? You were
This is
figuring out
camera angles.
Yeah, we had to figure out if we had space for the cameras and where they could
Where
sit
they're going to be
and-
positioned.
What kind of lenses?
and how
everyone
far
has
away the
unique.
lenses. Yeah.
It was a bonfire. That's what we were starting.
I'm glad you didn't. Sprinkler
And that thing
system
was
up.
so rickety,
Yeah.
but it worked.
It was fun.
It was very rickety. That
We
was just the
recorded like
prototype.
2 episodes on it, didn't we?
Look, we got the the
Yeah, the
insulation
insulation's
over
up.
those. Yeah, that was very official.
Yep.
We
Well,
were
got
so
the
happy
new-
we got this TV.
The new TV.
This
Oh,
We
is
had
yeah.
part of the
TV.
panels up.
I'm still jealous of this TV.
I know.
I don't know.
I looked at getting one at home.
Oh, there's Coach Delosier.
Coach. Yeah.
So that first one was like the first prototype. Now this is a second table.
Right.
You can see it's a
Second-
little bit nicer.
New slick top.
The new evolution.
Yeah.
of
Right.
the-
Right. Different
prototype.
adjustments. Oh, and
Oh,
then
there
we
you
got
can see the whole thing.
we got the.
You know where I got that? I got that on Etsy. A guy on Etsy that makes.
I'm
he
sure
has a
you frequent
special
that.
CNC router. Well, that was the second time ever that I was on Etsy. Haven't been on since.
Yeah.
But if I ever need something like that, I know where to go.
And then those huge arms for the
Oh yeah. And we
microphones.
we traded in the overarms for the
Felt
underarms.
A little bit more camera
The
friendly.
low profile.
Yes.
Yeah.
These are a lot nicer for that.
These mics have held up pretty good, I feel like.
Oh yeah. Well, and since
Whenever I see one on YouTube, they're always using the same mic, so that's when I know I'm.
I know. Well, it's like the
Must be the
standard.
right
It's the
Yeah,
gold
it's an
standard.
industry standard
Is
Yeah.
for
It is.
podcasts and
All right.
radios and
It'll last a long time.
There's Austin.
Austin
Yep.
with a remodel.
Mm-hmm.
the fun reflection off of the TV. Now that's the only downside of having the TV is we
Yeah.
have challenges with the reflections.
We have this really big cloud light. You call it the cloud that
The
makes
pillow.
a nice even sheen. So,
Oh,
the
swag.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's you guys testing out. We had these colored lights behind us can make the wall any color you want. And so you guys were experimenting.
You can
with
kind of
very
see it on
blue.
the top there. Yeah,
Yeah. Cool.
very blue.
Oh, that's after
Where's the
alumni.
sunglasses? Those are pretty nice. Did
I
you
broke
drive
'em.
your Porsche in that day?
No. Jeff.
We've tried many different
drop.
configurations of lighting, so you
Oh
can see
yeah.
one sitting
They
off
used to be
the side.
vertical. I forgot about that.
What?
The lights.
Oh yeah, the lightsabers.
Yeah, that were good. Yeah, up here.
Oh yeah. Oops. What did you have to do? Angle it so that. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
but this is a phone photo. This isn't from one of the
Oh, I
cameras.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cameras wouldn't show that.
Yeah, Tim's.
Tim McPhillips, beardless. I like him better with a beard.
Same.
There's a lot of Coke Zero in these pictures.
You know, we just said yes, and coffee. You know, we just said that Randall Gillespie was the first one to have 2 episodes as a return.
But it wasn't true.
Well,
Or
I
was
wouldn't call Tim's 2 episodes
It
a
was like
return.
part one,
We
part
just
two.
couldn't
Yeah.
get him to say everything in one episode, so
Yes.
we had to do 2 full
was-
shows.
But they were just back to back.
Yeah,
It
they were
wasn't
back
like
to
a
back.
year between
That's what I'm
like we did.
saying.
Yeah.
But
T.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
some
yeah,
swag
more
again.
swag.
Mugs. We're out of those mugs now. We have to
Yeah,
reorder.
you were reordering.
I think that's all of them.
I've got some other ideas.
Nope.
If you have some ideas for what we should give our guests as swag, let me know in the comments. No one ever comments. Renee Westfall. Jared, what is he looking at me like that?
Well, listen, here's my favorite part. This is my angle on
Oh.
the show every time. When I'm sitting
Yeah.
over in the other chair, you don't, like, you guys, you're trying to keep your profile forward for the camera,
Yeah.
but you end up doing the side-eye thing
He's giving
the
me
whole
side-eye.
time. So I'm always like, are they dubious or they just don't want to face forward? Or,
With the timer in the background.
yeah, there's a timer.
Oh,
All right.
Okay.
Well, that's pretty cool. Trip down memory lane. We got
Oh.
the.
Mrs.
was Dr.
Dr.
Oates.
Oates.
So this is the official studio. Is all
Right,
prepared and
once it was
everything
all
the way
done.
it is now. Yes. Love it. You think that was the first one with the new desk? Dr.
know.
Oates. We just celebrated 50 years with Dr. Oates, a new category
That's
for
incredible.
recognition this morning. Well, I guess we better get started.
Yeah.
You're listening to On Mission with Dr. Matt Davis, a podcast designed to explore the personal mission of everyday leaders. Hear from men and women who are making a difference in their corner of the world and discover what keeps them on mission. Welcome to On Mission. I am Dr. Matt Davis, and today my guest is also my co-host, Jonathan Sheely.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're always invited. But this is a somewhat sad occasion, as this is the final episode co-hosted by my esteemed colleague, as God has opened the door for him to move on to a new role, which we will be talking about today. And this gives us an opportunity, just the two of us, to kind of talk and reflect upon what God has done and bringing us along in the On Mission podcast, maybe some of the things that we have learned along the way. And just an opportunity to see what's a little bit ahead, as this is the last episode recorded for season 8 of the podcast.
8
Can you
full
believe
seasons. It's been a long time.
What year did we start? I mean, the year was 2000.
Let's see. 22?
22? You think it was 22?
22 is the
We
fall
did
of
8
22?
seasons since 2022?
Yeah.
Holy
well,
cow,
because
gotta
we
slow
do
down.
it. Yeah. Well, and didn't we record the first one in the fall, and then we had a Christmas break, and because the first episode, you weren't even on campus.
No, that was a scramble, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I forgot. That was the first. You guys actually recorded that in the East Conference room.
Yeah.
We had a missionary, and I was in some conference trying to
You're in
find
Florida.
a quiet place. Oh, I remember why. We got canceled. Our flights got canceled.
Right.
Thanks, Southwest. And we got stranded in sunny Florida.
And we learned very quickly that we didn't want to do anything
that's
virtually.
the only time we've ever even done a remote podcast, and we were not remotely ready for that.
No, we were not.
The production quality wasn't so good. But, man, we've come a long ways since then.
Well, in those first two seasons, we partnered up episodes. You had 2 interviews in a single episode, and everyone was
we've played
like,
around with a bunch of different formats and ideas, having 2 guests in the same one and trying to mesh those things together, and trying to have, sort of a recap where we'd come back in and re-record on top of that afterwards, and that was a lot of production.
Oh yeah, there have been a lot of decisions that were pragmatic. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, and we got a little bit better at it as far as interviewing
I was going to say that the conversations got better once we were less worried about partnering a speaker with another speaker as well. We were able to settle.
We didn't have to try to steer it in a particular direction.
So even though it was a production decision to not do 2 episodes in the same, or 2 interviews in the same episode, it definitely made the content better to just have 1 interview per episode.
Well, we try to go 35, 40 minutes, and sometimes they go a little bit longer, and we're fine with that if the content's going. That's what I love about this format, is that there's not like a particular time point that you're trying to hit every time, but it does allow us to really delve into. Sometimes it's biographical, sometimes it ends up being more content driven. Wherever the conversation goes, it always
the cool thing is
surprises
we
me.
have conversations on the show that happen every day on campus, right? Because we
take for granted,
our guests are on campus for maybe a day or 2. Maybe they're speaking in an assembly or in a chapel, or they're from another ministry that are on campus, and you and I have lunch with these folks. And other faculty staff do.
That's really what led me to want to do this podcast. There's a million podcasts out there, but we were just noticing all these people coming through campus, and even our own folks that are here on campus, and thought, man, if there was a way for us to really highlight these folks that are serving the Lord and what they're doing.
Well, when people remember Maranatha from, when they're graduates, the number one thing they talk about is the faculty. And it's great to hear faculty in classes, but when you have them on the show, they distill their mission in such a nice package to be able to show this is why they're doing what they're doing, not just what. We can talk about the what all day long, but you can get that on the website.
Right.
But the why behind it, man, that makes the difference.
Well, it's why we're here. There are 4,000 plus colleges and universities out there. Why Maranatha? And I think that this, and you're telling me we have just under 100 episodes now that we've produced. That's pretty amazing. I don't think most podcasts make it, past season 1 probably, or episode 1.
No, because it's a lot of work, but it is a worthwhile endeavor. Absolutely.
Well, I'm thankful that we've been able to do this as co-hosts. It's, it was one of those things that was important to me early on, was that it not just be like a one-man band. I didn't want to be the focus of it. I wanted our guests and their stories, but I also knew from my experience really working with Dr. Gibbs at Christian Law Association, we used to team teach the legal seminars. And I learned from that, it really does help to have two people sort of co-hosting it at the same time, so that one can be thinking about, okay, how is this being received, or where's the conversation going, and jump in when they have the opportunity. And you have done that so well over the years.
Well, because what no one else sees is there's a stream of consciousness coming from my phone to your phone while we're talking. Hey, make sure we get to, hey, don't do this. There's not very many of that. But there's a lot of, hey, let's make sure we have these points hit. And it's easy to get off topic, too, because our guests, they wander, and that's okay. That's what a conversation is about. But sometimes you're so close to a gold nugget, and you're like, whoa, go back to that, go back to that.
Yeah, right. And that's where your input has been so valuable. And then even in being able to kind of track that, how it unfolded, and help us in the post-production side, you kind of have to have an idea of where it went and how it went. Yeah. So that's been amazing, and I think really validated the format itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, honestly, it's been fun.
Oh, absolutely. It's, during the school year and for part of the summer, every Thursday morning, we're going to have fun. It is. It's a reason to get up and go to work. We have a lot of things to accomplish, but when you see the value on the return from a project like this, it really does help with the discipline on the other side. We sit in the show, and there's a lot of work to be done in the show, but it helps to have fun in the show when you go back and you're like, okay, so now we got to work through it. And obviously the team over there does a lot of the heavy lifting on post-production. It's not like I want to take credit for that, because I'm not actually in Premiere or in Adobe on the audio side. They've done a great job, but it is fun. It is fun to see the variety. We were talking about some of the guests before we got started, and something it's cool to have students, have a couple of the students on.
Yep, we've had some interesting kinds of guests over the years. We've had missionaries, camp directors, lots of pastors, college teachers here at Maranatha, administrators. We've had
business owners
and leaders that are kind of here for different conferences or speaking opportunities, content area experts, lawyers, my favorite.
Of course.
Yeah, it's been a really broad array of people. Only one active student, current student, Caleb Moultrie, was our one and only current student. I want to do that more often. I think he did a phenomenal job.
He did.
Yeah, and we did have one other student, actually, now that I think about it. The Spencer's daughter was on here as part of the Team Mexico
and you had your
panel.
Son. You had your son.
Mike was in
You
here.
had a few students, but none of them were in the traditional model. Right?
It wasn't like the guest.
Right.
That's a lot
it is.
to do.
And he carried it well. He
Yes.
had great content.
A ton to say.
He especially about talking about his dad's leadership, and that was exactly the kind of thing that you want to hear from students.
Well, and his work ethic.
Yeah, absolutely.
I actually referred to that podcast episode yesterday with a current student.
Really?
And I said, what are your plans for the summer? And he said, well, I'm going to do this or that. And I don't know. I said, well, are you going to play ball? Because he's on our basketball team. And I don't know. I said, well, you need to go back and watch that episode that Caleb Moultrie talked about what he did all summer long. You want to be like Caleb, you got to put the work in.
It's a different mindset. And I think that shows his leadership when he's on the court.
Yep.
He's not accidental.
Well, and it's very prototypical of a Maranatha student to be engaged with that, work hard with whatever it is, including and outside the academic arena as well.
Absolutely.
We've had a few couples on the podcast.
Those are cool. They really are, because we know that individuals have personal missions, but there's something special about seeing a family mission, and especially when it's a family coming to work at Maranatha. That is a family decision.
Oh, yeah.
They're separate careers, for sure. You think about the Browns and their lasting legacy here at Maranatha through one-on-one lessons, but I think there's as much to glean for their leadership as they work together at an institution as there is in their separate offices.
Well, you had a connection with them even from before Maranatha.
Yeah, and seeing them leave, I was a kid when they left Tri-City in Kansas City, and that was bittersweet to see them go. But I didn't exactly know what I was missing, so I was so young. But then when I got here, I was like, "You mean I could have had this my whole life?" And it was funny because he leads the madrigal choir, and I got put into the chambers choir. And to be honest, blessed. I had a bad attitude when it first started.
Oh, you were like, hey.
I was like, I would have. But here's the thing: I absolutely no regrets.
Of course.
And then I got to see the difference between chambers and madrigal too, and the diversity of those two.
Chief
choirs.
Is the best. Love him. We had the Andersons on here as a couple. That was awesome.
And to see Mrs. Anderson's testimony come out. We often would say before the Andersons came that Mrs. M, is campus mom.
Yeah. Of course.
And it was easy to think about that for Mrs. M because she's an outgoing person. She's very smiley. But absolutely, it was good to hear Abby's testimony too.
Yeah. And we actually had her tell the story from her perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
We'd heard him tell it a few times. I said, I want to hear it from your perspective. And what a unique episode that
Same
turned into.
Same different angle.
Now, same thing with the Marriotts. We did have both of them on at the same time.
And it was fun because I'm not actually in the show when you guys.
Well, when it's a couple, it kind of like everyone rolls over and one falls out. So
and it's always good to be on the viewing side for that, and to see them work together. Even they're a couple in a ministry as such as the Marriotts. They've always worked together, and to see them in the show work together in the conversation, and obviously Doc has a legacy that will. Forever be here, but Mrs. M has always been a part of that. Their leadership missions work in tandem.
The Morrises were on here as a couple, and that was cool. And as part of that Mexico team, telling the story of getting stranded by a volcano.
Yeah, I was gonna say they had a crisis moment, and
not in their marriage.
No. But the thing is, I mean you know this because you have been on mission trips too. But they're responsible for these students.
Oh man!
And you just think about all the things that you pray that don't happen, and
I was on a mission trip at the same time, and so when we're traveling abroad. Texting doesn't work, so we're using WhatsApp.
Yeah.
And I'm getting these messages. Hey, I know you're in Kyrgyzstan, but anything you can do to help us get out of, southern Mexico? They're telling us we're, the volcano. And I'm like, what is he talking? Is he joking? Because, Pastor Morris can joke around a little bit. And then I get on the news and I'm like, no, literally a volcano.
No, there's an actual volcano. We talk about your flights being canceled or not
your
bags
missing. Being lost.
No. There's a volcano about to erupt.
Puts that in perspective, doesn't it? And that was interesting. But I think the first couple we had on was actually Tom and Sherry Graham. Mm-hmm. Had they just started, or were they hadn't even here yet?
Yeah, they were on a trip before their start date.
Yes.
And I mean.
The studio didn't exist like it does now.
It doesn't look like this. And talk about God's providence in bringing that family here, even as we talked about this morning in Recognition Chapel, Dr. Graham taking over for Dr. Licht and the administrative responsibilities for academic affairs. What a cool family, you know, and the graduates, their kids being graduates, doing amazing things. I was talking to Dr. Graham in his first couple of months when he came about Trey being overseas.
Right.
And some of the things that he was doing as an American nurse, that overseas they have different expectations because everyone knows, that's an American, and the level of excellence with this young man.
Well, a nurse in the military is a very different type of a role, and he was ROTC here, top graduate, incredible undergraduate student. We always knew, Trey was a real
big
deal.
Things.
Yeah. Married Amelia. I mean, they have a great family.
Yeah.
You guys were probably in a plate or two together, weren't you?
They were at the tail end of when I was.
Okay.
So I was in grad school when they were in undergrad.
All right. So you were probably helping out with the sets and things like that at that point. So, great legacy with the Grahams, and I'm so thankful that as life has unfolded for them, of course, Mrs. Graham helps us in the executive office, and now Tom has taken in some big shoes to fill. Yeah. Today we had our recognition chapel, and we have 5 retirees that we honored today, including Dr. Licht.
Incredible.
First of all, it's hard for me to believe that it's been 10 years that he's been the VP for academics, because I still think of, specific conversations I had with his predecessor, John Brock, who still lives rent-free in my head. And, now that we have had 10 years to work together, it's just like you look back on it and say, how did that happen so quickly?
I had Dr. Brock for Sunday school when I was in undergrad.
Whoa.
Right, so I was attending fellowship, and he was teaching just the general Sunday school classes.
Was he pretty well prepared usually?
Oh my goodness! I mean, you want to talk? It was just like I was still very much in the note taking stage where you just want to write everything down instead of soak it in. And I'm like, I cannot write everything down fast enough. And I think I asked him for his notes a couple of times. Yeah, that was a mistake. Like, there's just so much. Yeah. His brain, man.
Yeah.
And we did, we did such a great piece on Maranatha's accreditation a few years ago in The Advantage.
Right. Yep.
And during that time, as I was, producing that,
he was the champion.
He was the champion. Yeah. And he was the architect as well to the systems that laid the foundation for our recent reaffirmation.
Yeah. We enjoy the fruit of the trees that he and so many of the other pioneers academically here at Maranatha. And on the financial side, really, Dr. Corey Fafi, who we've also had on the podcast, was the one that not only is teaching the School of Business and really established the School of Business, but also was instrumental in a lot of the accounting practices that we have now that, really help things to run very smoothly on that side of the house.
And it's a tough thing. Fiscal responsibility is a high priority for prospective student parents because college is expensive.
Yep.
And I'll tell you firsthand, making the switch between student to GA to staff, that was a big concern, of mine that, just my fears were completely alleviated going to the staff side where I'm like, yeah, they're not wasting any money because there's no money to be wasted.
Well, we don't waste money. No, we cannot be accused of wasting money.
There's no inflated
other
prices.
Than on this lavish podcast studio.
It was a gift. I always try to remind people it was a gift.
We have enjoyed that. So some of my favorite ones are the side missions that we've had the opportunity to do.
Absolutely.
Recording as we've been on the road, different places, and you've done some like when you've been at Answers Conference and recorded a few that way.
Some really cool people, and I know that you have the same experience when you're in a conference setting. You're watching these other people work with crowds, and they're giving these great presentations. And we made that decision to have the mobile unit to take with us, and I was like, I've got to take it to the Ark. So when we go to the Ark encounter, these people are doing phenomenal work. They're in the trenches defending creation for how it sets up the rest of the Bible.
As an apologetics ministry.
It is.
Absolutely.
And to see the Ark itself is cool. To see the people behind that ministry, even cooler.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say all of our side missions worked out perfectly.
No.
Some of them have been epic failures, to be honest. We have tried twice to record on the golf course, and I'm willing to keep trying. I don't know if you are. I'm willing to just take that bullet. Isaiah doesn't seem to have as much fun when we do them.
He's like, are they in the green? Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I'm go. I mean, let's do this. I don't know if your new boss will let you take any time off.
I'll check.
Okay, you can put in a PTO request.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll get to that in a little bit. But we have twice tried to record on the golf course. I don't think any of them have ever seen the light of day.
I think it's psychological. It's self-sabotage so that we have to keep trying.
Well, aw shucks,
Bummer.
I'm willing to try. I did get the chance to record a really great episode with two professors at a Bible college in India. That was a fun one we did between seasons.
Yeah.
And I have another one that we've recorded already that was a few graduates from the India Bible College I did earlier this spring. And so this upcoming graduation will actually be my second graduation of the year, as their academic calendar is a little bit different than ours. And in February, had the chance to be there for their graduation and talk to four young men that are headed into ministry in a very different cultural context, and even with a very different level of personal safety and security in terms of the when the Bible talks about giving our lives as a living sacrifice, we don't often think of all of the ramifications of that, but in some cultures that literally means I'm putting my life in the Lord's hands and allowing Him to do with it as He will. Now, of course, all of us literally have to do that because none of us are assured of safety and security at any moment. But in those cultures, it's a much more obvious threat that they face. And so I can't wait for that episode to be produced, and we'll for sure be putting that out on our YouTube platform as well. So, all right, almost 100 episodes we've sat here together and enjoyed so many conversations with just incredible people,
Yeah.
alumni, non-alumni, business people, all these incredible professionals, and they've all answered the same question.
Yeah.
What is your mission in life? And so when we started our first episode together, I think we asked each other what our missions were, in life. And I wrote that down, and I've thought about it a lot since as we've had other episodes. I'm sure you've done the same thing. So here's your last episode as a co-host. How has your perspective on mission changed over the course of the years here?
I'm so glad you asked.
You wrote down some.
I have some things.
Good.
When we first started, there was a podcast that I had listened to. Another podcast host said that he got free business counseling by conducting a podcast. Right. And I want to echo that sentiment, that I got mentoring and counseling on how to structure my vision and mission from listening to everyone else talk about it. And, behind the scenes, what we often would say after a show was done,
yes,
we would say, man, they said the exact same thing, and I wanted them to get that much further into what they meant by that. So a lot of times our guests would say something about glorifying God.
Yes, most common and
yeah,
biblically correct.
It's accurate.
Kind of like on Wheel of Fortune when they give you the first few letters.
Right. Right. It's the given.
Of course. It should be.
Right. And I don't want to downplay that.
No.
And I don't think that's the heart by what we have said before.
No.
But what we're saying is that all Christians have the same default mission, but what is your personal mission goes even deeper than that.
How does it play itself out? How does it apply?
How does it apply?
Doing that? What does that mean?
With that in mind, I did some reading. I did a lot of listening. And just recently, I attended a retreat called a Life Focus Retreat. And I would not have done that had I not sat through all these episodes. And this is what I came up with from my life retreat, my Life Focus Life Retreat. I'm a visionary, innovator, and leader. I exist to promote excellence, combat passivity, and stagnation. I do this by seeing the best possible way forward, speaking the truth directly upon reflection, and creating effective solution for my clients. So
that is sort of your vision statement moving forward, as you are about to launch into the creation of your own business and offering those kinds of insights to business professionals outside of Maranatha's context.
Yeah, for the first time, we as a family, we started thinking about changes about a year ago when we were talking about having a second child. And Jacqueline, when she came into this world, she people have said it before, but knowing that I was going to have a daughter changed things. And then when she came, she solidified a lot of things. When you spend those couple of days in the hospital and all you're doing is caring quite literally for a life that is fighting to stay alive, when they first come out. And we started talking about how we wanted to make our life different. And I realized that I have a passion for helping people see that their life can mean something more than what they're just doing every single day. And so I'm launching a new business called Sheely Executive Consulting for two primary reasons. I want to help small businesses solidify their operations and stay profitable. And I want to help individuals with personal productivity and for life vision. And a part of that is if you want to be productive every day, you have to know what your mission and vision is for your life.
You've got to know that it matters beyond just putting food on your family, as George Bush used to say.
Yeah. And what I have found through our conversations in the podcast and through other conversations and prayer and meditation is that a lot of people are just punching the clock.
Yeah.
You know what? Christians are not supposed to punch the clock. We are supposed to be the most professional people. Our day at work defines for those people who are around who God is, because we are image bearers fundamentally. But on top of that, if we name the name of Christ as Christians, then our life is a testimony to unsaved people as to what Christ is like. And if we're lazy, if we're haphazard, and if you'll notice in the middle statement, okay, it's I exist to promote excellence. Okay, that's forward thinking.
Yes.
You have to prepare for it. You cannot fall into excellence. You have to strategize. How are we going to do this? That has been some of the most rewarding work at Maranatha, is to be able to take a step back and say, you know what, team? We're doing some awesome things, but there are a few things we need to do better. And take a step back and do the assessments. And there's research involved, and there's a timing for that. But the partnering statement with promote excellence is combat passivity and stagnation. That's also an active against negatives, okay? So I have to actively combat the creep of stagnation within my professional career and within the teams that are around me.
Well, that's a little bit tricky because we do learn as humans by building upon prior knowledge. So
yes,
what we have done in the past is the foundation for what we will do in the future. And part of what's kind of wrong with our society right now is that there's a desire, I think, as with every younger generation, to just throw everything out and start over, burn it down.
No.
You're seeing it on college campuses, you're seeing it in protests and things like that. And so you're not saying all of the way we've done things before is bad.
No.
It's just that we also, as humans, the default is always the status quo.
Well,
and just continuing what we've always done because we've always done it. And maybe it's not the best way.
And here's the thing, we talk about like life trajectory. And a lot of times we want this like really consistent 45-degree angle up.
Yeah, I talked to the guests a lot about that.
But here's the thing, that's not how life works.
No.
And so stagnation is getting stuck on a plateau. You're right, we get better at what we do. So you get to a certain point and that you're not actually climbing. It's not as hard as it used to be. And so you kind of, all of a sudden you start to, it's not flatlining as in you're dead. It's just you become a little more plateaued. And that stagnation is saying, oh, I'm fine at this level. No, you should be hungry for new levels of productivity, new levels of efficiency. And here's the thing. It's not so that you can accomplish more. It's so that you can accomplish the right things, right? There's a myth that being productive means I can get 1,000 things done. It's not actually a virtue to be that busy. It's the virtue is to be able to choose which things are supposed to be done today and focus on those things. That's difficult, especially when we have a world that is constantly yelling at us for time, for energy, for responses. I mean, even the idea that we all have our emails on our phone means that we're always having to access it.
I read an article today in Ars Technica about the history of the Palm Pilot. And you don't even probably know what a Palm Pilot is anymore. It was a personal digital assistant, a PDA. And that really was it was the same form factor as your phone today, but it wasn't connected to anything. It was a standalone device. And I had 4 of those in my early legal career as I upgraded, from year to year. And it was talking about all those things it could do. And there was one guy at the time who said, I don't want that thing. It just looks like an electronic leash.
Yeah.
And there's a sense in which that was very prophetic because that device wasn't even connected and it was a leash. Right. The devices that we have today are not only connected, but they're literally designed to grab and hold our attention and to demand it at all times. So much so that even in professions that don't need external communication, the idea of not having your phone with you can almost induce panic.
Yeah.
I mean, I've turned around to go home if I forgot my phone and got about halfway to work.
Well, and it's an expectation game, right? So you have to create an expectation within your team. My wife and I have an expectation when she was teaching, and I'm here at Maranatha, that if she texts me during the day or if I text her during the day and she has to respond quickly, you have to say that at the top of the text. Otherwise, we may not be able to see it. She's teaching. Yeah. She can't actively text me while I'm teaching or while she's teaching.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with professionals. While we're in the show, I should not be responding to emails from my team because we're focused on what's here. And so I like people call them vision statements, mission statements. I liken it to a life focus because my mission identifies what I'm focusing on. Not that there aren't things that aren't important in the world that are around me they're good, but they're not my mission. They're not the things that I'm going to focus on. These are the things that I'm going to focus on.
Well, your career trajectory has been pretty interesting too.
It has.
You came to Maranatha a long time ago. How many years ago?
13 years ago. Yeah.
2011.
2011. The
As
fall
a
of 11.
Freshman?
As a freshman. And yeah, it hasn't been staffed the whole time. Although I do like to give Dr. Harrison, Jim Harrison, a hard time because in the first semester I was at Maranatha, he was traveling back to Kansas City for a harvest rally, for a youth rally. And my wife and I, being from Kansas City, he was like, I should take these two, see if they have any connections. And the rest is history for Maranatha and my career there, because I went and I repped with him. I had that van time. If you've ever had van time with a professional, it's different than a road trip with a friend. You hear different things. You have different conversations. Yeah. And I was traveling with Dr. Harrison and his daughter and future son-in-law at the time. They got married. And so I had this great experience with a vice president. Like, how many people get 8 hours with a vice president? That
sounds like a fate worse than death.
Yeah, as a freshman, I had no idea what I was getting at that time. But yeah, so my first job, I'm not sure which job I accepted first. It was probably chair crew was the one that I first accepted the job.
You got to start somewhere.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere.
Pot wash, chair crew.
Yeah, I don't know anyone at Maranatha like that has worked on chair crew that didn't think that it was a really foundational experience, right? There's there's nothing more ridiculous than our rhythm of setting up and tearing down the exact same chair every single day.
It has to be done.
It has to be done.
And it's absolutely foundational. Nothing else can happen if we don't put them up or take them down.
Nothing else at Maranatha happens without the chairs. And so, like, the rhythm and discipline of getting in to do chair crew was important. Then the next job that within a couple of weeks was stage crew. And I loved working on stage crew. And my first boss was James Wright. Yep. And he was an engineer.
He's like a famous YouTuber now.
He is a famous YouTuber. And I always tell him, like, listen, whenever you can just like throw a little bone to On Mission, that would be good.
Help us out. We should have him on. What were we thinking?
Yeah. Whoops.
Season 9.
We showed our hands. But I worked on stage crew. That was a different experience than chair crew because it was the opposite. Chair crew was the exact same thing every single day. Stage crew, the opposite.
Sure.
100% creativity. I was on the builder side of the team, not the painter side of the team. They still don't want me to do that part. But Isaiah was my boss in his, it would have been my third year at Maranatha, was his first year back at Maranatha.
And in that crew, he goes by Cap.
That's Cap.
Right.
Yeah, as affectionately known as Cap.
Amen.
And everyone has a stage name, right? Everyone has a nickname on stage crew. And mine was Steel.
Steal? What did you steal?
No, 2 E's, not EA.
Oh, okay.
2 E's. And, I really enjoyed stage crew for a lot of reasons. But, my favorite show that I was a part of was The Hiding Place.
Oh, really?
And that was a deeply spiritual show where we talked about some really heavy themes.
Yeah.
And I remember having a prayer session after one of the rehearsals, crew and actors alike, because it's just really hard to act like a Nazi.
Yeah.
The guys were having a hard time.
Yeah, it's hard.
And we were just thanking the Lord that this is not something that we have to worry about. This is the way that he directed in the World War there is that it is not a normal thing to put on a nasty swastika.
Yeah.
And that was a different experience, because that was probably one of the first times I remember thinking, what I'm doing as a supportive crew member to help these guys.
You can't tell that story without the devastating wickedness of the enemy.
Right.
And yet somebody's got to portray that, and that can put you through its own emotional toil.
And it was a good time for me to learn to be behind the scenes.
My son was in that production. Eric was in it.
Yeah,
he was a little kid.
Yeah, it was great.
Did a great
and
job.
I've always loved when we have kids on stage because they also add a level of perspective. Like you can't, okay, it's not that easy for a 17, 18, 19-year-old to act like they're 11. So when you have an 11-year-old on set, it makes a big difference.
Them, some of them it comes natural.
I wasn't going to say that, but you're the CEO, so you can say that. But yeah, so then, from stage crew.
What was your favorite stage crew setup for a play?
Oh, as far as who the crew was?
No, the set to work on.
Okay, so that's tough, right? Because Christmas Carol is just it's an oppressively heavy show as far as the techniques. There's just a lot of sets.
Demanding.
It's very heavy on stage hands, right? So those of us who have to move everything. But I think actually one of the most fun was when we did Anne of Green Gables, and we basically built a big skateboard and on casters and everything, and then it had different scene sides so you could turn it around. But that thing was so heavy, and we have great memories of almost getting crushed by this thing. I hope OSHA is not hearing this, but that we did some really fun things on the techniques. Now the strategy stuff, not the building, but the stagehand techniques. Running in the Red was my first play. Okay. And that was a comedy, a radio comedy.
One. I love that one.
We died laughing. We heard the same jokes for 8 weeks straight and died laughing every single time. And the slapstick involved with that show was.
What was the hillbilly one they did that Kurt Wagner was in? Man, I can't remember the name of it.
I wasn't in that show.
He came running down the stairs and said, "I got my Colognese on and I'm feeling frisky." And in my family, they've been like, we will pull that out every once in a while.
Oh my goodness! And here's the thing: working on a crew like that. Oh yeah. Working on a crew like that is family time. It is just, it's a different level of working together. But I stopped doing stage crew so that I could be a floor leader. I was an RA.
Yep.
Boy, that was fun. Yep. Third floor Leland. That's a rowdy crew.
Is it?
Back in the day, that was the ROTC dorm. There was a lot of ROTC guys in the dorm, and man, I loved that. We would do dorm devos or floor devos in my room. I made them all come into my room.
Oh, nice.
And rubbing shoulders together like that. That was a good stretching experience for me in leadership on my mission now to say truths to people, to speak truth. As a floor leader, I had to say, so that was my first time in having to do that.
It's hard. It's hard to be a peer, but also kind of be in a position where there's an expectation that you're sort of enforcing standards.
Yeah, and you know what? I wanted to have fun with the guys, and I wanted to explain, guys, we have committed to abiding by these rules when we signed the student life agreement. And so we have placed these parameters on ourselves, not them. The staff did not do that to us. We did it to ourselves. And so we can have a lot of fun within the box.
Yeah.
And
you did have a lot of fun.
And we did. And that was exactly the point. I said, you know what? It is, those kinds of boundaries, they challenge your creativity. How can you have fun within the box? And that was a good experience. But then when we graduated, my wife graduated with a teaching degree, and she started teaching English right out of the gate. And I transitioned into grad school, and I worked as a grad assistant for Dr. Harrison. I tell him that I was a slave for a year and a half. I did everything he wanted me to do. Seriously, I learned finances in that. That was a crucible time. I was a rep. I was out on the road warrior. Boy, I loved that. I clicked off 30-something states as a rep.
Wow.
And boy, that experience of seeing Maranatha faculty and staff and graduates out doing the thing, that is second to none. That was motivating. You can do it to the students was an easy thing for me to say after I saw it. And then working with the callers, call center, when we actually did, phone conversations.
Remember back in the olden days when you could call someone and they would answer the phone?
And you know what? We used to have jokes about the phone clicking. They don't get that anymore, right? Like it used to be a fun thing to when you were mad, you would slam the phone down.
It would ring there was a bell in there. And it would just kind of clang.
And hurt your ear. Now, but transitioning, I had an opportunity when Dr. Harrison added some responsibility, became the director of student recruitment and admissions.
Yeah.
And that was when my professional career started.
Yeah.
And I had to figure out how to be a professional instead of just to be an employee.
Was that hard to kind of make the leap from having been a student to then being really a full-time staff person?
It really was. Yeah. To be honest, it was a really tough time. I enjoyed the job, but I gained a bunch of weight. It was a new kind of stress that I'd never felt before. I'd been married for a couple of years, and that was not a stress at all. We had been dating for such a long time. Our first year of marriage, unlike what people told us it was going to be like, our first year of marriage was awesome. Every night was date night, Yeah. But the stress of working as a director and the responsibility, it wasn't the tasks that were hard. It was the responsibility that I needed to do my job so that everyone else at Maranatha could do their job. Yeah. And I loved that work. I loved that, the challenge. When things got harder, you had to push through. And working in student recruitment and scheduling and teaching, there was so much teaching involved with that job, on helping other GAs learn how to be a professional and yet be a student, and to figure out life for the first time. Because a grad assistant is in a weird spot. It's like no man's land, right? Because you're supposed to be often they're newly married, which is a whole thing in of itself. They're trying to be a professional for the first time, and they're still trying to do the hardest academic work they've ever done. Oh. And so there was a lot of educating, life educating during that time. But leapfrogging a few people was tough, right? Yeah. I distinctly remember the first time I stood up in faculty in service as the director of student recruitment and was teaching the faculty how to do a better job recruiting. And I was like, my stomach was just absolutely bonkers, right? Because these are my mentors. These are the people who I learned life from. But then Dr. Saxon actually, on the way out, after I was done, said, "Hey, that was really good. I learned something." And I can't tell you how often I have remembered that, because Dr. Saxon, Saxon, said I learned something. Yep. And I can't tell you how important that was to hear. And I did a lot of reading during that time. I fell back in love with reading when I became a director. And now that is core to who I am. You have to be a reader to be a leader.
We have heard that from so many of our guests.
Because you have to learn from other people. There's not enough time in life for us to learn by mistakes the same way that everyone else did. And it doesn't mean you get to implement everything you read. There's no time for that either. Yeah. But man, I remember the support of the team when I turned full-time, especially Mrs. Hibbs. Donna Hibbs was just an absolute saint to help. She established my leadership, if I could say it that way. She treated me with respect, and therefore everyone else in the office did, because she had been there longer than I had. She had worked one-on-one with Dr. Harrison for a long time, and that was a huge testimony right there. And then moving from student recruitment and admissions to communications, that was a direct result out of reading a book on leadership called Dare to Lead. And she, the author Brene Brown, when she opened the book, she introduced me to a part of a Teddy Roosevelt speech that we refer to it now in our culture as the man in the arena. I had never heard it before. And then I went and read the whole thing after she addressed it in the book. And the gist of the quote and the reason that the book was so impactful to me was, your leadership is only effective if you are serving the people that you're around. And if you're not going to serve, you shouldn't be a leader. But if you're going to serve, you can have the confidence that what you need to do, you can make hard statements. You can ask for a lot because you're not doing it for your own gain. Right. You're doing it for someone else's benefit. And so let me tell you, I had some long conversations with friends before coming to you and saying, hey, maybe I should switch into a new role. But that transition, again, the Lord used many conversations in here's your skill sets versus here's things you can do, but here are the things that you're gifted in. And communication has been a lot of fun. Yeah. It's been so much fun. A different challenge, a different beast. PR changes every single day. but there's a rhythm to it, and there's a determination to make sure that Maranatha is understood correctly.
Well, we have a strong brand.
Yes,
and we have so many good partners that we work with, that we have various visual elements that really reflect well on who we are as an institution, as a ministry, and that I hope reflect well on thanks that reflect well on our institution as a whole, and certainly that has been a team that you have led over the last couple of years. So it's been pretty amazing to be able to work together and to see you grow from a freshman all the way through now into the professional that you are today. And then it's exciting to see what's next for you as you launch out into that. Certified now.
Yeah,
I heard.
I'm double certified. So
double certified.
Yeah, so I have 2 companies that I in 2017 when I took over as the director, I had to figure out how to keep my day to day, right? And Dr. Harrison used a Franklin Covey planner. It's like you didn't see Dr. Harrison without his Franklin Covey planner. But I did not want a spiral bound planner. And so I looked around, and then I decided to take on using the Full Focus planner. The Full Focus planner is only a quarter of the year at a time.
Okay.
And I've been using it since 2018. It took me a while to find it.
Do they have a Palm Pilot app that I can use?
No.
Oh, okay.
But I got Full Focus certified earlier this spring to help people figure out how to make the decision on what's the most important. And it's based on the principles of you can only focus on 3 things at a time. Right.
Wait. You can focus on 3 things.
Well,
at a time?
in a week, in the week and in the day. So I have 3 things that I have to accomplish that are most important on a weekly basis and on a daily basis. And if I accomplish those 3 things in the week and in the day, I can accomplish quite a bit. Now, there's a lot of tasks that you have to do around that.
Okay.
So it's not like you're writing everything down.
Right.
But if I can accomplish 3 important components of a yearly goal or a quarterly goal, you can accomplish quite a bit. And it's encouraging. After every quarter, I go to do a review, and I look back at the accomplishments of not just me, but my team. And it is amazing to see that stack up quarter after quarter, year after year, when you take a little bit of time to reflect and say, here are our requirements as an office, here are my requirements as a leader, and here are the things that are going to move the football down the field. Mm-hmm. You can't focus on everything at the same time, but you can accomplish a lot if you identify 3. So I'm Full Focus certified. I can help other people implement the planner and that vision casting process. And then I just recently finished Business Made Simple certification. And that's awesome because I can literally work with small businesses on how to make sure that they're making money and spending the time on the correct tasks. Marketing doesn't have to be mystical. Mm-hmm. You can do it if you can break it down to some key components. And I have benefited probably foundationally at Maranatha as a professional from having a clear mission at Maranatha. And so one of the things that I'm really looking forward to doing is helping businesses establish a legitimate mission. Now, visions and missions are defined in different ways, but however it looks, every decision I make at Maranatha is filtered through that mission. Mm-hmm. And if you live and breathe it the way that you and I have to because of our jobs, everything becomes a little bit easier. It's not like the decisions are easy, but the decisions, you only have a few of the factors. There are so many things that you eliminate by having a good mission.
Yeah, that's something that I have tried to make a hallmark of leadership in my own tenure in that role, is that just about, well, I should say it this way. So many questions can be answered if you start with the mission. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a prospective parent that says, why should I send my kid to Maranatha, all the way to, well, how should I approach this particular project or task? If you understand what the mission is at the institutional level and you understand how you fit within that, your unit, your department, your role, then you start to see a greater purpose that's emerging from the efforts that you are engaged with. And, I think about that all the time, but it's not just because I'm the CEO. It's should be really everybody throughout the institution that's aware of it, knows how they fit into it. We had our accreditors here earlier this year, and I was pretty confident in our opening meeting with them, our private meeting. I said, go ahead and ask anybody that works here what our mission is.
Absolutely.
I was very confident they would know what it was, mostly because it's on the walls all the way all around. But beyond that, and every lock screen on every computer.
Right.
But you know what? Why do you think that's on every lock screen of every
Exactly.
computer? Because I said, hey, we got to keep this in front of everybody all the time. They've got to remember this is why we're here. And you have a very short period of time in that college experience. So those accreditors, they walked around, they asked people what the mission was. And they came back in the closing meeting, they said, we even asked students, and they knew what the mission was. Yeah. And we asked the staff and the faculty, well, how does what you do support that mission? Yeah. And they were able to answer that. And that is really key to having an organization that's so much larger than one person and one person's vision, but rather to be distributed out so that every individual knows how what they're doing contributes to the success of the organization. So I think that's great work. It's a great fit for you. You're going to be fantastic in that role, and I can't wait to see how the Lord continues to use you in that way. So for us, that does create a pretty big leadership vacuum in a key area, but I'm very thankful for how God's been working in that as well. And really, you set the stage for that. I don't know if it was earlier this year or late last year when we met and talked about the structure and organization and even the names of these different units. Your unit is called the communications department, but really it's the marketing wing of Maranatha, and it doesn't just have its own team of employees or direct reports, but it has folks distributed throughout the entire organization that perform marketing functions, and they need unified leadership. It's so important for any brand to really be focused on what the message is that we're sending, so that we don't contradict ourselves or have an ineffective strategy. And you have been doing that as well as can be done with the current structure. Now that we have the opportunity to kind of relook at that, we're going to be implementing a new structure with actually a new division for marketing. So it'll be a marketing division led by a vice president for marketing that will report directly to me. And all of those things that are happening are very specifically, things that you had identified really that we would need to do in order to be more effective. You had your finger right on the pulse of what needed to be done. I'm thankful for a new VP coming in, Todd Valeria, with 30 plus years in the marketing world. And again, somebody who just completely on mission. Probably have to have him in here as a guest for season 9 at some point. But an incredible story of how God's worked in his life. But his basic testimony is, I've been successful here in the secular career that I've had in selling products, but God just put it on his heart. He's had 2 kids come to Maranatha. He said, man, if I could use this expertise, this professional expertise in a ministry context at Maranatha, what a joy and a thrill that would be. Yeah. And he said, God just won't leave me alone about it. I got to come. And it's exciting to work with people that are dedicated like that. So things are shaping up well for that transition, certainly for you and for your family and for Maranatha. And it's just a testament to the fact that God moves in our lives, and the mission itself is our focus. But how that plays out vocationally, locationally, relationally, it's very different, and it's different throughout different periods of our lives. And we have to be flexible to that. And as you said, not hold on to the status quo so hard, but see how God's leading. It's not necessarily always comfortable. No. I'm sure that there's a lot of, you talked about the stress of your first professional job. Yeah. Now, this is going to bring a lot of stress, too, as a business owner and feeling the pressure to make ends meet in that way and be successful and do your very best. But the character that you have, the quality that you have exhibited is going to stand you in great stead for that, and I know that the Lord will continue to bless you in that.
It's been a wonderful experience to go from faculty or to go from student to staff, and to see that it's not just a business operation around here. Oftentimes Maranatha alumni will text me, "Hey, what's going on? This, and this." And I've had this great opportunity to say from the inside, let me tell you, the inside scoop is that we're all human. And that we're having a great time doing what God wants us to do. Yeah. And there's nothing better than knowing that the things that you're going to do every single day matter.
Right.
And whether that's helping someone understand how social media ought to be written, or if that's keeping the brand style guide foremost in people's minds, or if that's taking a student aside to pray, it's no different in my mind. It's all doing what I can to glorify God in the small things, because that's what stacks up. We look at the folks this morning in the recognition chapel, and we look at Dr. Rhodes after 50 years of working everything at Maranatha himself and creating divisions and departments himself. But you know what? It was still a human that had to come into work every single day and keep the mission first, and to keep his personal integrity in such a position that his leadership could be effective.
Yeah.
And that's what
that's
I have
not
watched.
Easy. Yeah.
And that's what I've watched around here, because there are decisions that happen every single day at Maranatha that could go one way or the other, and God keeps things on task. And when we are doing things on purpose, we see those red flags before they get to us, and we're able to prevent the problems from happening.
Yeah.
And it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure.
Well, I am going to miss you greatly. This also creates a vacancy in the co-hosting role. So an initial plan is to just, forge alone and say no one can do it like John Shealy did it. We'll put a plaque on the chair over here or something. But I'm reminded, maybe we'll have auditions for co-hosts. We can put it out and have a little contest. What do you think?
That would make for good behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think we'll maybe try and do that like they did on the Manning cast. Yeah. But I don't know if Tom Brady's available. Do you think? Maybe.
I don't know. But we got a hallway he could sit in
anyway. Sit in the hallway. But John, I love you as a brother in Christ, as a friend, and we're going to miss you around here on a daily basis, but I'm glad you're staying in town, and we'll certainly cross paths. We need to perfect that golf side mission and get out there and do that one more time, and I feel like we have the technology now that Isaiah can finally get it figured out.
No pressure.
And we'll say interesting things about golf and life, and it'll be awesome.
Exactly.
All right, my friend. Until next time, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. On Mission is a production of Maranatha Baptist University. Subscribe to On Mission on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to leave a review, as this will help other growing leaders find these conversations. For information about our guests, previous episodes, and general information about On Mission or MBU, go to mbu.edu/podcast. Join us again next week as we examine what keeps leaders on mission.